Hello, everyone. My name is Sam Huber. Quick background if you haven't heard of us. I'm running a company called Admix, which is a 3-year-old startup. We're based in the UK, and we are building the infrastructure to help publishers monetize via in-play formats, which are type of ads that are actually integrated directly within the gameplay. The company, we've raised about $10 million in VC so far. We employ about 50 people and really in hyper growth at the moment. We are expecting to double in size by the end of the year. And we work with about 300 mobile games and hundreds of advertisers who are trying to place their ads within those games. So we have a really interesting position and a really front row seat in how gaming is developing, not only as an activity, but also as a media channel. To share with you today and talk about a couple of insights of what we have learned so far. So let's start with the basics. I'm sure obviously you guys would know this, but gaming is a major part of our media diet. If you look at the amount of time spent on games, we know that this is basically taking over the other channels. The attention, the engagement is second to none. The aggregated time that people spend playing games is, I think, close to 1 trillion hours a year, which is roughly on par with social media. And as you know, this is growing even faster than other channels. So the reason I'm saying this is if you're a brand today, if you're an advertiser, gaming is just too big to ignore as a channel to reach your customers, as a channel to reach people, your audience. And this is, regardless of the type of game, whether it's hardcore gamers or hyper casual gamers, whatever the brand is, your audience somehow at some point is playing games. And this is what brands are really realizing today. The opportunity cost of not considering gaming as part of their media plans is too big. It's basically ignoring another social media. It's equally as big, same amount of engagement, same amount of eyeballs. And for some reason, brands haven't jumped in it just yet. And that's pretty clear now. When we started the company a few years ago, this was not common knowledge, I would say. A lot of brands just didn't think that gaming was either premium enough or brand suitable, or there was a lot of hurdles for them to actually be part of the games and reach that audience. But now things are changing really, really fast. And so what I'm trying to discuss today, and it's what is this relevant for you, for publishers? Because everything I'm talking about here might sound like I'm talking from a brand perspective, but why is it relevant to publishers? Well, the key is that you are sitting on a gold mine. You basically have access to an audience that is very, very engaged, and that is valuable not only for you in order to have successful games and monetize that audience, but it's also equally valuable for brands, for advertisers who are trying to reach that audience. And they can reach that audience on the web, they can reach that audience on social media, they can reach them on every channel except when they're playing games. And that fraction of their day playing games is growing compared to the rest. So for brands, it's starting to be increasingly important to figure out a way to engage with that audience, and not just with big sponsorship, as we'll see in a bit, or outside of the game. How can they be part of that gameplay? There's millions and millions of hours of gameplay, and they are not actually monetized. You might be monetizing users with in-app purchases or interstitial and rewarded, but these are just thin slices of attention. What about the gameplay in between? There are opportunities there to monetize that also. And that's what our company Admix is building. It's really trying to create a revenue stream so that as a publisher, you can monetize without compromising, and you can monetize every moment of the game. And my goal with this presentation here is more to make you aware of the tools that exist to actually make this work. Now, of course, in-game advertising, it's not a new thing. This is an example of a game, kind of a promotional game, Pepsi Man in 1999. There are even way older examples than that. Advertising in games is pretty much as old as gaming itself. There's always been some activity going on there. But it's pretty clear that most of the activation that we've seen over the past few years, and I'm just reviewing the main ones here, a lot of them were, sponsorship, custom activations, things that obviously generated a lot of PR, but were not necessarily scalable and profitable either for the brands or for the publishers. And this is really the core of the issue here. We work with a lot of brands, and we are constantly kind of asking the brands why you're not present more in gaming, because everyone's talking about gaming, everyone wants to be a part of it, but yet at the moment, it's still at the very, very beginning of scaling those kind of activities. And what brands and agencies say, you can see the responses here. Basically, everyone's interested, everyone wants to do it. It's not that the budget are not there. It's more practical things, like the lack of tools to make in-game campaigns easy to activate, or the lack of measurement. How do you prove that this is actually working, that the brand is getting a return on investment? How do you prove that? Or how do you target the right user in the right game at the right time? Again, the custom activation that we've seen before, this is kind of a takeover of the game. It doesn't enable the brand to talk to the right person at the right time. And on top of that, because none of this is automated, because there is no infrastructure for this, it's very expensive, because you have to rebuild it from scratch. You have to treat it as a project, as an activation. And because of that, brands can only do so many activations, because a big activation would take a month to put together. And so it's more of a marketing thing, almost a cost that comes out of the marketing budget rather than a continuous activity. And that is really what is needed, is solving all of these problems. If we solve all of these problems, we can unlock literally $100 billion in revenue opportunities for game publishers, because that is basically the amount of attention and engagement that is available in gaming globally. And that is the amount of money that brands would spend on similar channels with similar engagement, like social media, for example. And so basically, as you can see, it's a lack of infrastructure that to make in-game advertising scalable, measurable, profitable. And that is the infrastructure that is needed to turn gaming into a true media channel and unlock this extra revenue stream for the publishers. So let's unpack that a little bit. So we believe that there's about 4 components of that infrastructure that need to be in place to truly unlock the scalable potential of gaming as a media channel. So number 1, we call that Inplay. This is our own term. Some other call it Ingame, which we felt was not necessarily specific enough. Inplay, what we mean here, it's native insertion of ad content inside the gameplay. So if you're playing a football game, you have banners across the stadium. If it's a racing game, you have actual ads around the track, and it could be any type of games. It doesn't need to be those. It's about really inserting the brand within the game itself. It can be banners, it can be videos, and in the future could be 3D formats, skins as well. Really what matters here is that the brand can be part of the environment. Every media channel has built ad units that are native to the environment. If you think of Google AdWords, the results that are paid are natively integrated within the organic results. And these are ads, or the Facebook feeds, right? Facebook's business really started to take off when they started to support in-feed ads. Before, they used to have the ads on the right-hand side, and the engagement there was a lot less. So that is what's needed to drive true engagement. You need somehow to blend the advertising within the content itself. That is what is needed, and that's actually working better for the players as well, because they don't want to be interrupted, and that enables them to consume the branded experience as part of the gameplay. That's what we call an in-play ad experience. And of course, that's the infrastructure that we are pioneering at Admix. Now, the second point here that is needed to help develop gaming as a media channel and unlock that extra revenue It's real-time, data-driven advertising. This means that different users will see different ads based on where they are, based on other data points that we might have on those users, based on their location, the type of game that they play, and so on. So advertisers can, do this on every other channel, right? They can do targeting the right user at the right time on the web, on social media. Why not gaming? Why hasn't it been done before? Gaming provides also unique data that enables advertisers to target against new customer insights that do not compromise on the user's privacy. It could be something like gameplay behavior, but actually are not available on the web. So that gives them extra data points, which they're always very, very excited to be able to target, again, new things, learning new things about their customers. So it's pretty clear that if we want to scale gaming as a media channel and unlock that extra revenue, the ad delivery needs to be data-driven. You can't just take over an entire game, show the same adverts to everyone. This is just not going to scale. It's not going to give the right results. And by the way, this doesn't mean that the big activation shouldn't exist. I'm not saying that. These are great activation for PR, great takeovers, custom project. That's absolutely fantastic. But on top of that, you can have a model that is programmatic, that is data-driven, that actually generates results. And that's the part that I'm talking about here, not that it should compromise the other part. So that's 2. 3 is about inventory availability. So inventory is the placement inside your games. For this to be able to scale and for brands to actually embrace this, we need to make it easy for them to buy. If they have to come to a new platform, or if they have to buy it in a kind of manual way, insertion order, deal with each game separately, this is not going to work, right? We need to make it simple. We need to make it part of the media plan. As simple as it is to buy Facebook ads or Google ads, they should be able to buy gaming as well. And this is what is going to get gaming on the media plans and unlock this extra revenue stream. What it means really is that we need to make this available programmatically. When brands or agencies are trying to activate a media plan, they would normally use platforms. They could be Google or the Trade Desk and others. So the inventory, the in-play inventory, needs to be available through the platform that they already use. And the format should also be standard so that there's no creative cost on their end. We need to reduce the barriers to entry, at least initially, to make it simple for advertisers to embrace it. Every custom things that you do, whether it's a new platform that they need to use or a new format, this is just going to add friction, going to add delay. And when you can buy a very known channel like Facebook that doesn't have any friction, the budgets are going to go towards the easiest channel with the best measurement, the best return on investment. So because it's new and it's different, at least we have to make it simple. Overall, it's about reducing the barriers to entry and making gaming as easy to buy as traditional display advertising. And obviously, it's a huge challenge, right? Because games are native environments. By default, you can't simply plug these apps into a traditional ad platform. And so that's obviously part of what our solution is doing. It's creating that compatibility layer to try to make this inventory available widely so that every brand can actually start placing ads in the game. And of course, you control what's being displayed in your game, but we need to make this available widely for brands to start jumping on it. And the last point is about measurement. So again, for gaming to become a true media channel and command millions and millions of dollars in spend, it needs to be measurable. And measurable here, it's basically showing the value of the ads, what is the impact, what is the return on investment for the advertisers, right? The value for publishers, it's pretty simple. You get paid every time you show an ad. For the advertisers, it's slightly harder to measure. Has this actually affected the brand? If you try to sell a product and you place ads in a game, has this worked? What is the attribution like? Have people actually seen the ad? And of course, there's various ways to measure success. What we're focusing on now, because the ads are mainly static and something that you cannot click on, it's just for display. we're looking at viewability. And that's really a measure of success for brands that care about awareness or CPM campaigns. Until very recently, no one in the in-game or in-play space was actually measured. This is something that just didn't exist. On the other channels, on the web, for example, there are standards for viewability that are set by the IAB, and you also have companies like Integral Ad Science or Double Verify, who are third-party verification vendors. You can plug them into your website, and then they actually stamp each impression and say, yes, this ad has been seen by a real user, and this is how viewable it was, and it's a percentage. Those solutions, of course, have been built for the web, and they're not working for games. Until recently, we actually announced last week that we were the first and only in-play solution to be verified by Integral Ad Science, which is really groundbreaking. Together, we worked on adapting the product so that it can actually measure in-play as well. And so now every impression that we deliver is stamped by a third party. Of course, this is great for us. This is great for publishers that use Admix because there is extra verification and therefore more spend. The brands are more confident about the channel because they can verify it. But really, it's great for gaming as a whole because it's one of the first time that one of this big company that has been set for the web or for all standards started to accept to update their solution and look at new standard, new environment as well. And a lot of them will follow. So that's it's been a pioneering announcement, but there will be a lot to follow to make sure that other standards in games are also measured alongside different standards that are more adapted to gaming. And that's a big thing. It's all about confidence and knowing, for a brand, knowing that their spend is in safe hands because this company that they trust is also verifying the in-game environment is a massive thing, and it's absolutely needed in order to scale it into a profitable media channel. I also want to include brand safety here, or brand suitability. Game environments need to be segmented in a way that give advertisers confidence about the environment. The traditional categories are very broad. It's basically gaming, entertainment, but gaming between a hyper-casual game or a hyper-realistic, FPS. There's a big range here. So what we're working on is actually creating a different taxonomy that is more precise to effectively create a brand safety score that will run from 1 to 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And based on that, the brand would know, if it's child friendly, if it's brand safe, or if it's actually violent. And then they can decide if they are happy for their brand to be associated with that or not. So again, it's about creating some of these standards, refining the standards to adapt them for this new channel, to give brands confidence and make it as simple as it is for them to start buying significant volumes. Now, in-play, real-time, easy availability, measurement, these are really the core pieces of infrastructure that are needed to unlock the potential of gaming as a media channel and create a huge new revenue stream for you guys, for the publishers. And that's going to be the transition from a pure custom activation to a more predictable, trackable, and profitable channel. The goal is that you have a channel for advertisers where when they put $1 in, they know that they can get more of that out. And when we prove that model, this is when you get recurring spend from the brands and advertisers, and of course then significant revenue for the publishers. Now, of course, disclosure, you might have guessed it. This is basically what our company is doing. We are building this infrastructure. We are Inplay. We are real-time. We are first-party data-driven. We're plugged into large programmatic platforms, and we are also verified as well. And it's really interesting. If you look at the evolution of the web 20 years ago, this is how the market started. The market really started to take off when scalable infrastructure was made available, and it made it easy for advertisers and publishers to trade this media. And this is basically where we are for gaming about 20, 25 years later. It's really like being in 1995 again. where just as web advertising was starting to take off. So there's huge opportunities for a completely different revenue stream, which is not just a new format. This is really, really important. Inplay is not just a new format, like you have your interstitial and your rewarded, because it enables you to monetize a completely different moment of the game. You can monetize 100% of your playtime, not just the interruptions. And it's already working. So I wanted to share a couple of proof points here. And this one, I think, is one of the most revolutionary one, because and this is not the only one, but this is might be a bit small on the screen. But basically, this is a case study that we've run with Neonplay, and showing that we've run a couple million ads, I think, and every million ads we're measuring the retention. And there was absolutely no effect in retention or session length or churn and dropout. We tried with 0 ads, which was the control group, 5 in-play ads, 10 in-play ads, and there was absolutely no difference at all. And it's kind of obvious, right? If you don't interrupt the experience, if you don't kill the game for them to watch a video, then they're a lot less likely to drop off, because they can consume this experience as they are playing the game. So that's a huge thing. It's the only advertising model that actually doesn't affect retention. So when you know that with rewarded or interstitial, you kind of have a cap of 6, 7, 8 impressions per user per day. It depends on the game, of course, but that's generally where it stands before you start losing users faster than you are making extra revenue. Well, this is not the case with Inplay. You can scale that 15, 20, of course, have to be reasonable, but as long as it's natively integrated and done in a nice way, which, by the way, is the responsibility of the publisher, right? We have a simple SDK for you to place this stuff. That enables you to scale your advertising revenue a lot more than traditional intrusive formats. Because of that, you can drive significant uplift in LTV or ARPDAU based on how you want to measure that. If you imagine, you have users evolving inside your game, and in addition from the interruptions and the rewarded ads and all of that, which can totally remain, by the way, it's complementary. You can still monetize their playtime, whatever they're doing when they're watching an ad that is on top of a building. It doesn't interrupt the game, and that can because you can scale that and have a significant amount of placement, you can significantly increase the LTV and the ARPDAU as well. Another thing that I thought was quite timely here is that because this revenue is coming from brands, and the IDFA might be used for retargeting, but it's really not used for attribution, because the attribution is not what matters here. We're looking at viewability as our core KPI. A lot of our publishers have actually kind of fast-tracked their integration of Admix over the past few months, because and of Inplay in general, by the way, because it's a great way to mitigate a potential drop in performance CPM. Again, totally different revenue stream. It's coming from brands. They're not looking at the same parameters. They don't have the same requirements. And so it's a nice way to kind of diversify your revenue streams. And so far, we haven't seen any drop in CPMs, which is a great sign. And we think that actually, with the IDFA gone, brand is going to take a bigger share of the revenue overall, because they rely on it less, and therefore the CPM is going to basically end up roughly on the same level. And lastly, we've had some interesting case studies showing that this format doesn't need to be used in the obvious games like racing or sports, which is how we started. But because we're providing a tool where literally you can decide where you want to place these ads. Is it only one and you can create a frame around it? Or do you want to put many? You want to create a specific screen for it? The power is in your hands. And that's, again, a really new thing for advertising. If you think of the other solutions that are very much plug and play, you don't have much control. Once the interstitial displays, it displays the way it's supposed to display. This one, you can literally decide how big it's going to be, where you want to place it in the game. And we had really interesting case studies that frankly we didn't really expect that this would work in puzzle games, for example. And that game has been really successful. So to close off, in summary, gaming is really evolving into becoming more than an activity, but a media channel. And I know this is starting to be common stuff. So it's probably not a new thing, not a revolutionary thing. I'm sure you've heard it before, but it's really interesting, I think, as a publisher to start thinking about your own properties this way as well. Of course, the most important is the gameplay and retaining the users, of course. But if you start thinking that your game, your audience is actually create value for another group, which are the advertisers who want to reach that audience. And using an infrastructure like Inplay, you can unlock a completely new revenue stream from brands who actually want to reach the right user at the right time in the right game. This, I think, can really revolutionize game monetization to a point where we will be able to monetize every moment, and monetize without compromise, and not simply the interruptions in the game. All right, thanks everybody. I'd love to answer any question if you have. Cool. We have a question from Rana in the chat. How easily can mobile devs or publishers integrate Inplay? So it's quite easy. We have a simple SDK, or more like a plugin, that integrates directly at the game engine level. So we have one for Unity, and for Unreal is currently in beta. And it's basically no code. So it's drag and drop. You take your banner, you have different formats. So it can be a billboard like this, or it can be a more square one, or video. You can basically drag and drop it inside the 3D, the design of your game, and then resize it, place it the way you want. You can curve it, you can add a shader on top of it. So you can really customize it. And that's what I meant by, the power is really in the publishers. The power is the first advertising solution which has a creative element to it. So you can really shape your advertising experience just like you would shape the rest of the game. So yeah, most integration, it's a day of work max to really get it working. And then we have a dashboard where you can control the type of advertisers that you want to allow. You put your bank details and get paid directly from the platform. So it's all self-serve and pretty easy to use. All right, do we have any other questions before we close off? We have another question. When will mobile game makers start really adopting Inplay at scale? Well, that's a good question. I mean, I think we have already started. We work with big studios, top 10 studios on mobile. That a year ago was not the case. We need to grow both sides of the marketplace at the same time, right? When they will adopt it is when big studios are making dozens of millions of dollars with Inplay, because brands are actually pouring the money in. So it's all part of the same plan. It's just about growing both sides of the marketplace, building the tools, making sure that it's easy to buy, that it's data driven, all the 4 points that I've mentioned before that are starting to develop. And I think 2021 will be remembered as year zero for in-play advertising. If we jump 10 years in the future and look back, this is the first year where it's starting to happen. So we already have a lot of big developers on board and more coming on board, and I think the movement is just getting started. All right, we have 2 other questions. What are the possible risks of overusing in-game ads? Well, I mean, of course, you want to retain your game and the gameplay mechanics. The goal is really that those ads are not intrusive, not affecting the experience in any way. And again, this is your responsibility because you are given the tools to decide how you want to integrate those placement inside your game. So if you were to plaster ads all over, obviously that wouldn't work. People would not play the game. So the responsibility there is really in your hands. That's basically the only risk. In terms of, we've added a lot of tools to blacklist specific advertisers. So if you're a publisher, you don't want to show a specific brand because you don't think it fits with your game, you can totally do that from our platform. So that removes a lot of the risk, and I would say that the risk is something that you can control during the integration. We have another question. Do you work with self-publishing studios who have only 100,000 downloads? Yeah, absolutely. So we have a self-serve platform. You can go to our website. You can sign up for yourself. You sign up, download the SDK. It's totally free. You can place it in the game, no matter how many downloads you have. Of course, the more users, the more revenue you're going to make, because that's what advertisers are interested in. But we don't discriminate. We have games that have only a couple of users. Obviously, they're not the most successful ones, but it still works. And as the game grows, you can also scale your revenue with us. So yeah, absolutely. Another question from Emin. Is your solution making impact on each genre of mobile games? What is the situation specifically on hyper-casual genre? Yeah, so we have started initially with the low-hanging fruits, sports, racing, and actually hyper-casual was one as well. What's interesting specifically with hyper-casual is that they have a lot of users, a lot of eyeballs, shorter session times, as you know, it touches a lot of people, and also very different profiles. And that's really interesting for the advertisers, which I haven't touched on too much because I didn't want to restrict it, but hyper-casual is actually the most exciting type of games for advertisers because they can reach anyone. It's not just people that are focused on racing games that might have, only a specific profile, or hardcore gamers. Everyone is playing hyper-casual games. And so because of that, it just gives a lot more optionality to the advertisers. Games get millions of downloads pretty quickly. So it really enables us to have this wider audience. And then it's all about the creative choices, how to integrate that within the game. That's your responsibility. All right, I think that's all the time I had, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.